So we've got a song, let's turn it into a demo. Hello, I'm Emma, I'm back. You may remember from the last video in this series about songwriting, I wrote a song. If you haven't seen the first two videos, please go watch them because otherwise this won't make any sense. What I'm going to do in this video is sort of talk you through my demo process. So how I take it from just me and a guitar to what it ends up eventually sort of sounding like. Essentially getting the concept of a song into being a real song that exists when you hit play. So that's what we're doing in this video. First off, I just want to say again, thanks to Aux for having me in this series. Make sure you check out the Aux app if you work in audio and you're looking for new ways to collaborate. The first thing I do when putting things into my DAW of choice, which is Logic Pro by the way, is convert the chords of the guitar into chords of Logic. I have a favourite synth, which is not this one, but that's why it's named not the usual synth, because I use the same synth sound for everything and my producer tends to get a little bit fed up of it. Like I said, I wanted it to be a little bit bouncy. So obviously I've put my chords in, the ones that I wrote on a guitar, and I've converted them into here. I tend not to just use boring triads because I think triads sound shit. I tend to stick the root note in the octave above just because it sounds better than that and it sounds a bit more like, and it's pretty. A good trick if you're putting guitar sounds into MIDI is to actually voice it like a guitar, so actually put each note of each string in here, so you'll have like, how many strings are on a guitar? 6, there we go. 6 notes in your chord, because there's the 6 strings on the guitar. Obviously you'll have repeats and stuff, but it sounds quite nice. And anyway, I've put it quite short staccato to get that whole cheeky vibe going. This is sort of what we're ending up with, and it sounds a little bit something like this. I can't unhear the Christmas song. Snow is falling. Next, I tend to add in a pad, especially if I'm building something. I quite like to just sort of copy and paste chords, delete these bits, they're unimportant, and make this a lot longer so it holds for the entire bit. Add a nice pad sound. Let's go with that one, because I know it sounds half decent in general. And then you end up with something like this. That's far too loud. There you go, that's chill. Still sounds like a Christmas song. And then this sort of like helps with the building kind of phase. Building tension, isn't it? It's like all very exciting. And then we end up with something like this, which sounds like it's going somewhere. Verse 2, I tend to sort of, if it's like a double first verse, bring the drums in there. And it's sort of, they come in and they sound interesting. It doesn't have to be complicated, it can just be sort of, I don't know, what's that? A kick and a clap? Yeah, I love a good kick and a clap. So for those of you that don't know, Logic and most DAWs have a pretty standard drum map on like MIDI keyboards. So C1 is the kick, D1 is usually the snare. There's always a clap around there somewhere, which is what I'm using. The hi-hat's usually the F sharp above it. And then you've got your toms and a tambourine apparently. Oh, cowbell. Obviously, you don't have to use Logic sounds, you can record a real drummer. They'd very much appreciate that because they don't particularly like being replaced by MIDI drums. I'm sure people can agree with me. Yeah, says the drummer in the corner. It sounds like it's building, and that's what we want. We're telling a story, we're making the music reflect the point. Pre-chorus I basically tend to sort of just take the drums out. So then when they come back in the chorus, it's like, whoa, this sounds good. So we've got a sort of, it goes down again, and then leave it on an imperfect cadence kind of vibe. I quite like doing pauses before the chorus comes in, so like silence and then bam. So like, obviously in this bit, sort of everything needs to be a little bit bigger. So I tend to sort of just add a hi-hat into my usual drum pattern, not gonna lie. I also don't have an electric guitar, and I thought an electric guitar would be a nice vibe for this one, so I've used the Logic electric guitar, which sounds awful. Again, you can replace it, I just don't have an electric guitar with me. Also, a good tip is to sort of like utilize silence as an instrument. So for these ones, just to have like the breaks so you can draw attention to lyrics or to different like counter melodies within like the silences in your song. It's a powerful thing if you do it right. We have basically the skeleton of a chorus at this point. Dynamics are the key here. If you start too big, it won't go anywhere, and there's always a tendency to like build it up to the first chorus and then you've like gone as far as you can go and then you're a bit stuck. What I like to do is sort of do that and then add like an extra bit into the second chorus, so that's like massive, and then have a really quiet bridge, or say for like the third chorus, have the first half of it be like one of those slow lovely choruses. Make sure your dynamics are different enough between section and section and not just build and build and build till there's nowhere left to go. That's always a good thing. It's always good to sort of leave room for extra bits if you come up with ideas afterwards, because you will. Throughout the process, you'll put vocals in and you'll be like, oh, something else needs to go there, and if there's something already there or you can't hear it, it's just a nightmare. I tend to leave demos, especially at this stage, quite sparse, so you've not really got much in here. Like, it's just this is like, you know, you're getting there, but realistically that's chords, my guitar going nah, nah, and then some drums, and that's 3 bits. There's not even a bass in here yet. You know, keep it fairly sparse until you decide what you actually want to do with it. And then for things like verse 2, not having it as quiet as the first one, always a good thing. Continuing the rhythm you sort of develop in the chorus is always fun, but with like less in the harmony, then that sort of works. And yeah, you're basically building yourself a backing track on which to stick your vocals. One more tip I have, and it's a final tip that I only learnt myself about 3 months ago. Don't just make your bass note the root note of your chords. I sort of learned to build songs by chord progression, bass, you copy and paste the chord progression and just get rid of the top notes and leave the bottom one and then put it down a few octaves. That's how I do it. That's how pretty much everyone does it, but don't do that. Come up with an actually interesting bass line. Obviously it can't be interesting all the way through if you've got vocals and it clashes and stuff, but try some different bass techniques, because I swear to God, it makes songs so much more interesting.
What do you mean by interesting?
Interesting. I mean, not just one note over and over again. I mean, it can be, just change the rhythm a little bit, or come up with some like runs and fills in between sections instead of just having it play the root note of the chord constantly. People tend to remember bass lines quite a lot, I've noticed, because you don't really get riffs in pop music, but you get funky bass lines. So funky bass lines. Not that this has a funky bass line in it yet, but it might at some point. Yeah, so basically I'm just going to play through what I've done. It's very, very simple at this stage, but it's always good to sort of like see potential. We've basically got this so far. I think it's always good to sort of like sing along with it to check that it works as well, which I haven't done yet. Let's see. When the drums come in, where are we going? It's my burger line. We went for burgers, drinking God knows what, somewhere I'd never been. Explored the South Bank, taking pictures of Trafalgar Square and me. Then on the district line, we shared a kiss goodbye. And I thank God that I turned back for him. I thought he could have been the one, but boy, how I was wrong. Guess I should have known better. don't treat or cheat on me or get sick of the ways I turn them into stories and then sing about them on all those little stages. I think it works. We obviously need to improve the guitar, but that can be done. It's fine. Once you get recording, which we will be doing in the next video, it all sort of comes together a bit more.
How finished an article do you think it has to be before you send it to a producer? Like where you're at now, so this plus vocals?
Pretty much, yeah. So I tend to spend quite a lot of time on the vocal arrangement, which we'll obviously get to. And then once I've done that, if I'm like, oh, it needs something there, oh, it needs something there, I'll put it in, even if it's not perfect. As long as everything that you want to be in there is in there as an idea, even if it doesn't make it, just so your producer sort of gets the idea of what you're on about, instead of you having to like explain it. As long as something is in there that's like, okay, she wants that there. As long as the vibe is correct, I think it should be all right. So, I do believe that is it. To recap, what have we done? That is a very good question. Basically, at this stage, keep it simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. You don't need everything in there yet. You can add it later. Just keep it simple. Leave space for it to like bloom. Chord voicing, play around with some stuff. Don't just use triads. Triads sound juvenile. They sound like kind of tinny and awful. I don't know. I hate triads. This is probably a me thing, but play around with it. Dynamics, so don't start too big, leave it room to grow, and you can always bring it back down to push it back up to help you build things. Use silence as an instrument, like just do it. No one does it. It's frustrating, but it's so cool. It amplifies your other things as well. And finally, bass lines. Make it funky. Make it not one note constantly. Do something cool, and if you can't do it, collaborate with someone. I know an interesting place to find some people to collaborate with. I wonder where it could be. They're my 5 top tips. Next time, I will be arranging the vocals. I will be putting that all together, showing you my process with that, and sort of coming up with like a final demo. So yeah, tune in next time if you want to see how this thing ends up. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure you check out the other videos in this series, and make sure you go to aux.app to check out what they're all about too. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. What? Oh, bye! I'll see you next time.